Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Carsten Tams. Welcome back, Carsten.
Good to be with you again, Tom.
So, Carsten, today our title is Focus on Strengths. You actually came up with that title, so I'm going to just start with that question. Why should a compliance professional or a training professional really focus on the strengths of their training, of their program, of their people as a starting point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know sounds a little counterintuitive, and I think when at least my personal experience with a lot of compliance training that I've seen is that it starts with the opposite. It starts with deficits. It starts with the idea that, or the concern, I should say, that people might engage in inappropriate behavior and misconduct, break laws, and what have you. And then the training is focused on, somehow inhibiting them or providing them with tools or with information that will help them stay clear of that. And there is a problem with that, which is that whether intended or not, the learner will feel that they are cast in the role of a potential delinquent, in the role of a potential, rule breaker, troublemaker, what have you. And this is not no proposition that generally works well with learners. For some, it can feel condescending, intimidating, or pushing. We all have an expectation of being respected, of being valued and trusted. So when we engage in training that tells us a lot about, these are the rules, this is what you have to comply with, and this will happen to you if you don't, then we kind of disengage. And there's some interesting research about that in psychology. The theory on which that research is based is called self-affirmation theory. And it says that people have a general desire to feel good about themselves, to feel they have integrity, that they are socially adequate people. And when that self-concept is threatened, people act defensively. They don't necessarily say, "Oh yeah, thank you. I'm glad you reminded me of that, and I better pay attention and think differently." No, they generally disengage, and you might still have people clicking the buttons and checking the boxes on your multiple choice questions, but their heart is not in the training. And there are in a variety of sectors, not ethics and compliance, but other sectors, something called the strength-based approach. Sometimes it's called capabilities-based approach or asset-based approach has evolved. We've seen it in healthcare, in aviation flight safety, in education, etc. And it seems to be an approach that is more successful at engaging people. And yeah, people actually have positive capabilities. So that's what I want to explore here with you.
Carsten, I really like this focus because, once again, it's all about the UX. But here you are integrating the learner, the employee, as a valued partner in the entire training process. And so that I think it's building trust, it's building engagement. I don't want to go so far as to say, we're proving we care, but actually when you have that kind of engagement, when you say to the learner, your time is valuable, your capacity in this company is valuable, and we're going to give you what you need, how you need, in a way you need. So you're really saying, Tom, maybe we should not think as much about the content and think more about how the learner and what they expect, and even more importantly, what they want. Would that be a kind of a fair assessment of what you said?
Yeah, maybe you saw a big smile on my face because you're saying these things so beautifully, better than I can. No, I mean engagement, as you said also in our previous episode, it's all about the UX. It's all about the user experience. So designing good, effective, engaging training that is memorable that really needs to be based on an understanding of the learner psychology and what they see as relevant. Now I think also the reality, if we take a step back, from kind of our professional bias, which is of course to focus on misconduct, that comes with the territory. But if we take a step back, we will realize that people bring a lot of capabilities, ethical capabilities, with them to work. We are not all potential delinquents. The likelihood is that most of us will go through and finish their careers without causing a major compliance upset. So let's think about some of these capabilities. First of all, people come with values. They don't learn ethical values during orientation and their first ethics training. No, most people already have ethical values. That's also backed up by some interesting research. For instance, Jonathan Haidt, moral foundations theory, who has found that people around the world care about I think it is 5 basic moral intuitions. Around fairness, around the use of violence, the respect, and what have you. So people bring values to work, ethical values, and they evaluate behavior that they observe around them based on those values that they carry with them. And that's already right there. You see a capability that is valuable. They also bring a host of skills to work. They have a capacity, so problem-solving skills. They see a situation where ethical values of the company are at risk. They have certain capabilities to think creatively and critically and to address these issues. They also have a capacity to act, to speak up. There is an interesting survey by the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and for, I think it's now 12 years in a row, it has shown that the primary source, far and away, before internal audits, before big data mining and what have you, and other sophisticated tools of surveillance and detecting misconduct, employees and employee tips are far and away the primary source of detecting misconduct. We have eyes and ears to see and to listen. So again, another capability. And the last one I will mention are our social relationships, right? People know other people in the company. You observe something, maybe you're a new hire, you turn to somebody you met during orientation in HR, maybe you've built some trust and you say, I don't know how to address that. And maybe that person says, you know what, I'll go with you to the ethics department, and you tell them what you just told me. So there are connections, there's mutual support. And so all of these are valuable assets, valuable capabilities, and the strength-based approach says, okay, how can we use these? How can we, first of all, recognize that they exist and then strengthen them, develop those skills, encourage those skills for the benefit of producing ethical cultures, ethical organizations.
This is just amazing to me, Carsten. Once again, you have taken the user and built on the user's capabilities to create effective training. This is going in, I have to say, a direction I never anticipated. So I can't wait to see where it goes. But let me ask you, strength-based training in theory is one thing, but have you seen or read about this approach being used successfully in an organization?
Yes, there are some examples. I have developed training myself. Most recently, I should say, not by myself. I've developed it with a client, to be precise, UNESCO. We developed an interesting card game that is very much strength-based. But let me also mention giving voice to values, something that many are familiar with, have heard about by Mary Gentili. So this is all about, enabling, supporting people's capacity to give voice to those values that they bring to the situation, to the organization. There is also another great example, and that has been studied and researched is in the area of sexual harassment, anti-sexual harassment training, active bystander training, or upstander training, it's also called. This is also a training approach that views the learner as a potential partner and ally in preventing sexual harassment. So there are some good examples, yes.
So, Karsten, are there some maybe quick or straightforward actions that a compliance professional can take to make their ethics training more strength focused?
Yeah. So first, I would say there's so many things that can be done, and the key is really, for a moment, taking off those classes, the deficit classes, and put on the strength classes, and really kind of work on our mindset and just say, okay, how would I design that if I viewed my learner as a person with capabilities? And then the rest will more or less, with a little bit of persistence, unfold itself, and people will come up with ideas of how to design a training in a strength-based way. Now, still, let me be a little bit more specific, give concrete examples. So often training uses scenarios. People are presented with a scenario, and then they are asked a question. Deficit-based scenarios often describe a situation where some rules or values of the organization are at stake, describing behavior that could be potentially problematic, and then the learner is asked to spot the issue, to see, okay, would this behavior be permissible, or is it unethical? And so a deficit-based approach would be more focused on problem spotting, as it aims really at helping people avoid tripping up on the rules. From a strength-based perspective, we would go a little bit further. We would move from problem spotting to problem solving. So, for instance, the scenarios that I include in the training that I design, they describe a situation, but usually somebody comes to the situation and sees, oh, ethical values are at risk, or the values of the organization are at risk. And how can I, as an employee, be a qualified, competent, and effective ethical or moral agent? What can I do? What strategy can I devise to intervene effectively? What actions can I take? What resources and points of contact are available in the organization to address this issue and to prevent, a negative outcome? And this type of problem posing engages a lot more of the learner's capabilities in terms of creative thinking and critical problem-solving thinking. So this is one example, right? Like, what is the challenge that you pose to the learner? Is it just don't break rules, or is it how can you be an effective partner in helping the organization shape and sustain its ethical values?
Carsten, it also strikes me that you are not simply telling or teaching, if I could be more charitable, people not to engage in misconduct or how to prevent misconduct, but you're actually developing a more sustainable, ethical culture within a company by having this type of strength-based training. Would that also be a fair assessment in your opinion?
Absolutely. This brings us a little bit to the issue of deterrence. And I think the most effective deterrent you can have against, that small minority that might cause you problems is a majority of employees who are encouraged and enabled to act on ethical values. They have been given the skills, the resources, the information they need to make them competent and effective, moral agents, if you will. And this will create a very inhospitable environment for those who come to join an organization to commit fraud, to abuse authority, or what have you. And I believe it's more effective than, let's say, somebody in headquarters thousands of miles away communicating about zero tolerance policy and disciplinary measures. I'm not saying you should, the CEO shouldn't communicate about these things, but I'm saying ultimately, the environment in which a potential fraudster, let's say, finds him or herself is a very powerful influencer. And again, there's in criminology, there's some interesting research about that. So there's research that looks at collective efficacy among residents in neighborhoods. And it has found that if two conditions are true, which are the community has good social ties of mutual support, and B, they are confident in their ability to intervene against incivil behavior. If those two conditions are true, this will lead to a displacement of criminals, of people hanging at corners selling drugs. Those people rather prefer neighborhoods in which collective efficacy is low. And I would think that the same applies in organizations. And this is what strength-based training really tries to accomplish. Oh, I lost you there.